A man swallowed 35 knives and lived for years after. Join me for today's story. Hi and welcome to today's video, and thank you for joining me. Today's story is the story of John Cummings, a man who swallowed 35 knives over a period of 10 to 11 years. So the following story is based on Dr. Alex Masseau. He was Swiss French, so I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but yeah, so the following is based on Dr. Alexander, full name, Dr. Alex Masseau. I'll put it on the screen so you can see how it's spelled. Whom was a physician at the hospital where this man ended up being treated for the latter stages of his life. Together, combined with John's account of what happened, based on notes that he himself had written. So let's get into the story. We find ourselves in the year 1799, June 1799 to be exact, where we meet John Cummings, a 23-year-old sailor on the coast of France, in the town of Havre de Grace. I think I'm butchering that. I would like to apologize for that. I would like to apologize for my horrible French. But anyway, not to be mistaken with the city in Maryland of the same name. We are referring to the Havre de Grace. I'm so sorry for butchering that. I really am sorry. I don't mean to. I'm trying my best. But okay, anyway, let's give that a go again. Havre de Grace. Its English name is Harbour of Grace. Anyway, yeah, so it's a port city in France that was developed initially by King Franz I in 1517. The place is absolutely steeped in history. Reportedly, during World War II, the Belgian government was transferred there to this port city for a short period of time, after the fall of Antwerp and Ostend. But that's a whole different thing. And reportedly, about 3/4 of this port city were destroyed during World War II. And of course later rebuilt, that is. It is the second port in France after Marseille and functions chiefly as an importation port, mainly the importation of crude oil. The port also has ship repair operations and ferry services to Ireland and England. The area has a huge industrial sector employment, as the port is directly linked to an industrial zone that has the following: oil refinement, petrochemical, chemical, automotive, cement, and aeronautical component industries. And those are just a few things about the place. And this is where we find fellow sailor John Cummings. His ship stationed off the coast of France, and him and his shipmates were exploring the area. And it's said that they spotted a tent and a crowd of people around it. They inquired from the people around there, and they were told, "Oh, hello." Wait, no, they're French. And they were told, "Oh, hello, fellow Americans. It's entertainment in there, and go on, check it out." So off they went, and they went inside to see for themselves. And in there, they found a mountebank. If you're wondering what a mountebank is, it's described as a person who tricks people out of their money, essentially. So, bankers. Just kidding. But anyway, yes. So think charlatan. So yes, a charlatan slash mountebank was inside doing a performance that involved pretending to swallow knives, more specifically clasped knives, pocket knives, those folding knives kind of thing. So they watched and possibly enjoyed the show. I don't think I would. They watched, enjoyed, and overall a good time. Just a good time in general. The sailors then returned aboard their ship and carried on their laughter, jovial times, drinking was involved in all that, and just, yeah, having a merry time. Now, at this point, I'm going to say truly and well lubricated, as they've been having drinks over the course of the day and over the evening and, enjoying themselves. And one of the fellow shipmen was recounting a story of the knives performance by the mountebank guy that they had witnessed earlier. And he was recounting this to his fellow shipmates that had not gone with them. Now, at this point, the alcohol is truly and well alcoholing, because John Cummings starts talking himself up and starts gloating that he could do just as well in terms of swallowing the knives. It seems like John was not aware that the mountebank man was pretending and he wasn't actually swallowing the knives. Nonetheless, so his shipmates responded, "Bet. Let's see you do it." Which, no, don't do that. Like, don't make him do that. So John, being the kind of man that does not like to go against his own word, and having a sufficiently lubricated mindset, he went ahead. He took out his pocket knife and he did the unthinkable. And he said, on trying to swallow the knife, reportedly it slipped down with great ease down his throat. Eek. Huh? We should all be less curious sometimes. So yes, he swallowed the knife. Let that sink in, or don't. Yeah, he swallowed the knife. But his audience was apparently not impressed or satisfied with him swallowing one knife. So they encouraged him to do more. John obliged. Apparently, they had asked him if he could swallow more, to which he responded, all the knives on board the ship. So he proceeded to swallow 3 more pocket knives. And I guess the people were happy after that. To which, did you guys like this guy? Like, I guess when alcohol is involved, our senses sometimes go out the window. So yeah, everybody retired to bed after that. John with knives in his stomach, I'd like to point out. Like, he still had the knives in his stomach. So John woke up the next morning for one of his morning body movements, I'm gonna call it, and there was nothing to report there, at least as far as the knives were concerned. It was in the afternoon when he went for one of his movements again, when he passed one of the knives. Remember, these are folding knives, like pocket knives. So it passed, not causing any kind of issues, because it was still closed when it passed. But it wasn't the first knife that he had swallowed. The day after that, he passed 2 other knives, one of which was the first one that began all this nonsense. But the fourth one never surfaced, at least not to his knowledge. Concerning. But apparently felt perfectly fine after that, so no discomfort or pain or anything like that. So yeah, life carried on. 6 years went by with no issues, no mentions and thoughts of. Now the year is 1805, so 6 years on. John is back in the States in Boston, and he's out drinking with a bunch of other sailors, which this guy needs to stay away from alcohol, please, when he gets to thinking and talking about his knife exploits. And of course, the people encouraged him, wanting to see for themselves. So he got a small knife again and swallowed it. John, you have too much of an alacritous response to this. So yes, he swallowed a knife. And then on top of swallowing one knife, he proceeded to swallow 5 more knives that evening. My guy, stop drinking, please. The next morning, he had a crowd of people coming to see him and wanting him to further demonstrate. He obliged and he swallowed 8 more knives, making it 14 knives in his poor stomach. But it's reportedly this time, though, he immediately felt the effects of having done what he had done. As the next morning, he woke up being extremely sick, and by that I mean like vomiting, and with so much excruciating pain that he had to be taken to hospital. So it's said that between this period, the period of between March and the 20th of April, that is, it's said that between this period, he was safely delivered of his cargo. So it seems like he recovered relatively well. So the day after his release from hospital, he was good to go, and his brig set sail for France, with him on board as well. And he arrived there in France with no issues. Then he set sail on a different vessel to return to the States. On the way back, though, it said that his ship was taken by the Royal Navy due to whatever suspicions the Royal Navy had. His vessel was taken to St. John's, Newfoundland in Canada, and it was taken there for condemnation. A condemned ship is usually dismantled or scrapped, as it's thought of as unsafe to be used any further, different from decommissioning, as decommissioned ships may still be in good conditions or may be refurbished or preserved or repurposed. For example, they can be repurposed for museums or they can be used as training vessels. So yes, different from decommissioning, it was condemned, so more than likely destroyed. So yes, John's vessel was sent to be condemned in Canada, and John himself was sent to Spithead, England. And whilst he was there in Spithead, the day was the 4th of December, he found himself intoxicated. This man and alcohol, honestly. And the topic of his previous exploits came up, and I think you know where this is going. John being a man of his word, he was showing them rather than telling them. So he swallowed 5 knives. Yes, you heard that right. He swallowed 5 knives that evening. The following day, the people of Spithead were hungry for more. They told him how great and impressive that they thought what he had done the previous night was, and they encouraged him to do more. No, but you know where this is going again. John happily complied, took a few swigs of the old mine lubricant, and he put on a show for them. Reportedly, he swallowed 9 knives, at least according to him, as far as he remembered. But the people said he swallowed 4 more knives than John remembered. Understandably, as at that point he was pretty obliterated. Alcohol, man. So that makes at least 35 knives that John had ingested. And it's said that some of the pocket knives that he had swallowed were rather generous in size as well. My guy, please stop. So what proceeded next was the following. The day after, he was immediately not feeling good, and he immediately sought his ship's physician. It said that the doctor observed, monitored his condition, and gave him a course of treatment. That course of treatment included oil. So I'm guessing he had to ingest it, as the report doesn't really specify how that was taken. He took the course of treatment over a period of time, and it said that he didn't really feel any sort of relief whatsoever, unfortunately. But he must have been in absolute agony. It wasn't until 3 months later when there was some change to his condition. So reportedly, and this is in terms of his account of what had happened. What happened was he vomited one side of a knife handle, and immediately one of his shipmates recognized it as belonging to him. That's crazy. And in November of that year, so later that year, in November of that year, he managed to excrete several knife fragments. And then again, passed some more in February of the following year, which was 1807. And then in June of that year, 1807, he was unfortunately and sadly relieved of his duties as a fellow sailor, because his condition had been affecting his job and his abilities to fulfill his professional obligation. So upon this, he immediately went to London to Guy's Hospital. Side note, it still exists today and is still operating under the same name. It was founded in 1721. So old hospital. So anyway, back to John, sorry. He was admitted to Guy's Hospital and he was under the care of Dr. Babington. So yes, he was admitted to hospital and he became a patient of Dr. Babington's. But reportedly, Dr. Babington didn't think this story was feasible. It was too unbelievable of a story to have actually happened. He was subsequently discharged a few days after that. So yeah, disbelief is the word. How is this man walking around with knives in his stomach? Like, how is this man walking around with knives in his body? So yeah, I can't imagine he would have been thrilled with that, with being discharged without being believed, I guess, and without having any kind of treatment. But in August of the same year, 1807, he had to be readmitted to the hospital as his condition had considerably worsened. Dr. Babington noted so himself upon seeing him. So upon his admission, he was somewhat considered a bit of a hypochondriac, and he was thought of to be probably just suffering from chronic affection of the stomach and liver. So gastritis and cirrhosis adjacent, I'm guessing. And he was treated accordingly, according to those medical conditions. However, upon further inspection, that is. However, the consistency of his story, combined with the hardness that Dr. Babington felt around John's colon, as well as the immense pain he felt emanating from his stomach, it lended some credence to John's story. Further examination showed a deep black color of his alveolar evacuations. So that's stomach, intestinal area. So anyway, yes, it showed a deep dark color, and that there really was an accumulation of ferruginous matter in his organs, iron, rust, kind of. And this was fully confirmed by another surgeon when he introduced a finger to John's rectum, and reportedly he felt a portion of the knife lying across his abdomen, across his intestine, but could not extricate it because of the sheer pain John conveyed when he tried to grab it or retrieve it. What proceeded next was what I can only describe as an experiment of proportions. So what proceeded next was the process of trying to dissolve or blunten the knife edges. So he was administered a cocktail of the following: nitric acid, sulfuric acid, opium, mucilage, I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it, mucilage, and other forms of palliatives. So I'll roughly touch upon these. So opium, in medicine that is, opium, I think we all know what this one is. But anyway, it's an extremely highly addictive depressant drug that was widely used as a painkiller back then. Which, that's a whole different historical mess, because even cough medicine had heroin back then. Its addictive properties can truly not be overstated. Mucilage acts as a coating agent, forming a protective layer because of its gelatinous nature. Little to no side effects in terms of when it's used as medication. So it's used as a form of treatment in reducing internal inflammation, ulcers, bowel irritation, etc. So the aloe vera plant has a lot of this. It has a lot of mucilage, and we all know its health properties. Licorice root also has this, okra, etc. Those are just some of the plants that have mucilage. I honestly would have put chia seeds in that list, but probably not, because they were not on that list. So it's not going to stop me eating them though. Anyway, back to John. He was also given nitric acid. It's a very highly corrosive mineral acid and a very powerful oxidizing agent. It's mainly used industrially in the manufacturing of fertilizer. Within that process, nitric acid is used to produce ammonium nitrate, ergo ammonium nitrate fertilizers, which are considered to be more stable fertilizers as they don't lose their nitrogen quickly to the atmosphere. I know, boring. But anyway, nitric acid is also used in dyes, in explosions. Malignant souls out there use it to carry out acid attacks. It is also used in liquid-filled rockets, etc., etc. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an idea of just how potent it is. There's levels to these things. Another acid that John was given was sulfuric acid. Now that right there, that's Venus's atmosphere. And I don't mean Serena's sister. Yeah, it rains sulfuric acid on planet Venus, did you know? Honestly, science has no chill sometimes. What do you mean an entire planet is a furnace ball that's sulfuric rain that sustains itself? Anyway, sulfuric acid has similar uses to nitric acid as well. That is, it's used in fertilizers as well and in dyes, but it's also used in oil refining. So basically, these two acids are not meant for skin contact, I don't think, let alone ingesting them. Yet somehow we are able to harness them in a non-harmful way for certain products and purposes. Science, man, that's what's up. So yes, his body was taking all of that. The acids and the palliatives. They were given to him as a course of treatment for his condition. But this man continued defying the odds though. So John was doing so much better that he was discharged from the hospital on the 28th of October. And it said that he wasn't seen, didn't visit the hospital for almost a year. 1808 to be exact, September 1808 is when he dropped by the hospital, as there had been problems again. And his physician this time was no longer Dr. Babington, but Dr. Curry. The two doctors had actually consulted together previously on John's case. So Dr. Curry was very, very much au fait with this case. And it said that John remained in Dr. Curry's care for what would be the remainder of his life. But sadly and unfortunately, he passed away in March of 1809, around 6 months after the latest admission. He was reportedly very, very emaciated at the time of his passing, which I can imagine because I don't know how one can ever eat normally after all that. So upon his passing, an autopsy was carried out and they made the following findings. They found 30 to 40 fragments that included blades, knife springs, handles, and of those fragments, 13 to 14 of them were blades. Some of the blades were extremely corroded and had shrunk considerably in size, whilst others were still somewhat preserved. In the autopsy, they concluded when John swallowed the knives, as long as they didn't cut or injure him in his stomach, which was the case, they hadn't, up until a certain point, but they hadn't. It wouldn't or didn't cause him any problems. They would quickly move on to the digestive system, and a lot of them made their way out still enclosed. But because of the repetition of him doing this, the stomach fatigued and lost the ability to be able to transmit this solid and unwavering objects to his digestive system. So they stayed in his stomach, giving him extreme pain and indigestion symptoms, which is partly what happened when he was admitted, which is one of the reasons I guess they thought he was being a hypochondriac at first. So anyway, yes, the knives, which most of them had horn handles, the knives remained in his stomach until the handles were dissolved, or at the very least reduced to the point that they couldn't give his stomach any more protection from the blades. And you can imagine what happened from then onwards. The opium and the mucilage were muting the pain and making it less painful to eat and drink at times, I imagine. We don't know if he could eat or drink whilst he was in hospital. Perhaps it was intravenously. We just don't know the particulars. So yeah, the cocktail combination of these remedies more than likely prolonged his life, as his situation was one of inevitability. So yes, even though he ended up passing, his body showed a tremendous amount of tenacity and strength. I don't know, man. The human body can be one of the most resilient pieces of mechanism, and we really should do better to take care of our bodies. As Warren Buffett said, if you were given one car for the rest of your life, imagine just how much you would take care of that car. Hence, we should apply the same principle when it comes to our bodies. And hey man, a lot of us are working on it. It's not a linear process, and it's never too late to start. Just look at what this man's body went through before, we can all do it. Just stay away from drinking and knives. May John Cummings rest in peace, and here's to us taking care of our bodies. Thank you all for watching. Till next time.